Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show, live with you from Baumhauer's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa. So happy to have you along with us on the eve of Thanksgiving, and of course this weekend, the Iron Bowl, and we'll have that broadcast for you from Jordan-Hare Stadium. I'm Eli Gold, joined to my right by Gary Harris, sports director at WVUA here in Tuscaloosa. How long have you been at VUA now?
A long time.
Yeah. Was it like WDBB or something?
Well, I worked at WDBB back in the mid-'80s, and I was gone for about 12 years and came back. And when I came back to Tuscaloosa, it was actually News Channel 49.
Wow.
And then the university purchased the station in 2001. It became WVUA. And so this January, I'll have 22 and a half years with the university.
Really? That's remarkable. Yeah. You know, and that doesn't happen very often in local media, and that's a tribute to you.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and, you know, I love covering Alabama, and once I got to 10 years and got vested, you know, a little more incentive to stay. But it's, you know, listen, if you like covering sports, you know, especially college sports, there's not many better towns to be in than Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
No, not at all. And that's exactly the truth.
And I've got to see every, you know, year of this dynasty that Coach Saban has put together. And, of course, even though I wasn't as old, I still remember Coach Bryant's dynasty, too. And I started TV, my first year in TV, Eli, I've told you this, was 1982 over in Anniston. So I covered Coach Bryant's last season. And
then Bill Curry. Well,
all the way. Well, then when I was out of the state, I didn't cover it. But when I came back, you know, covering Coach Fran and Coach Shula and now Coach Saban and get to be firsthand account of this incredible dynasty. It's been fun. So I couldn't leave.
I hear you. Well, we're glad you did. And tonight's Nick Saban Show, as always, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. And the coach has joined us here at the restaurant. And I'll tell you, it's so nice to see your whole family here in front of us. Children, grandchildren, of course, Miss Terry. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a time of year to enjoy family, Thanksgiving. Everybody should have a lot of gratitude for all the things that they have, the relationships and all the family and things that we have, that sometimes we think a lot about the things we don't have or the things that we want, but this is certainly the time of year to have gratitude for all that we have, and God's blessed us, and certainly thank him for that.
Yeah. Hey, one other question has nothing to do with anything except we've moved the show, of course, from Thursday to Wednesday because of Thanksgiving. Did you drive the, didn't you tell us you'd do the Ferrari on Wednesdays?
Yeah, Cedric let me ride in his car today.
Oh, he owns the Ferrari now?
Well, he drives it. So
I got you.
He drove me over here.
Did he? In the Ferrari?
Yeah.
That's all right.
It's a Wednesday car.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't drive it last Wednesday because it was raining, so it's a Wednesday car as long as it's not raining.
I hear you. Gary Harris, jump on in and join the conversation, sir. Great to have you with us.
Well, I will, Coach Saban. Good to be with you again. And this is the week that I usually draw for your show, is the Thanksgiving week. And so I know you get this one every year. But it is, you got one of the biggest preparations of the season, the Iron Bowl. You're balancing it with Thanksgiving. And some players can go home, some players stay here. So I just want to ask you, balancing the preparation, trying to give these guys a break for Thanksgiving, how does all that come together, and how do you do it?
Well, I think that, you know, you can respect, and the time that you have with us is important to what do you choose to think about? What do you choose to pay attention to? All right, so when you're actually in the football part of it, you know, what's the plan? What do I have to do to execute the plan? That's the process of what you have to do. And then what's your sense of purpose, and why are we playing this game? Because we've created a great opportunity for ourselves. So you want players to focus on those things so they can stay focused on what's going to happen on the field. So you got all these things happening off the field, whether it's Thanksgiving, whether it's family dinner, which is important stuff. And then there's all the noise on the internet, and there's all the scuttlebutt out there about everything that's happening in this game for the last however many years. So, but that doesn't really have any impact on what happens in the game. You know, the focus on the plan, the process, and your sense of purpose and what you want to try to do. So it's all about what you choose to think about. And even though I'm going to enjoy Thanksgiving tomorrow with our family, and we'll have probably about 15 players over, because the players that are far away, you know, the coaches have them over to their house. But that'll be an enjoyable time, and it's not really a time that we need to be thinking about the game so much. But there are a lot of times that we're going to spend focusing on what we have to do to be ready to play. And that's what we do in practice. That's what we do in meetings every day. So it is a tough balance, and some people have a hard time. But I think successful people and successful organizations have confidence in the process of what you have to do to be successful. And maybe that's why some people have long losing streaks and some people have long winning streaks, and some businesses have long histories of success and some have long histories of failures, is, you know, having a process and you have confidence in it and you can stay focused on it, you believe in it, trust in it, and do it. And that's, you know, what we got to keep trying to do with our players, because, you know, you want to keep focusing on improvement because you don't want to get complacent, you don't want to get selfish, and those two things can kill team chemistry faster than anything. And you want to try to peak at the right time, but you keep want to try to be a dangerous team, which you do that through focus and improvement and practicing well and creating good habits.
Coach, our first phone call of the night, no surprise. We've got Pee Wee on the line in Grand Bay, Alabama. And tonight's first question is brought to you by Alabama 811. And by the way, Alabama 811 is proudly supporting former Tide running back Kerry Good in his ALS fundraising challenge against a former Auburn player. So visit the Kerry and Gary Challenge. The address is kgchallenge.com. That's kgchallenge.com. We thank Alabama 811 for participating on that. And Pee Wee, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Eli. Coach, how are you, sir?
Good, good. Eli, how are you?
I'm doing well. Coach, first off, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and especially to you, Miss Terry, and the rest of your coaches and their families for everything that you do for our players on this holiday when the biggest majority of them are not able to go home to be with their families. What y'all do for our players is just fantastic about this.
I appreciate it,
that we really appreciate it.
Thank you, and best to you and your family on Thanksgiving as well.
All right, thank you, sir. You know, this game right here, our offensive line has the opportunity to come into this game and pretty much control it by controlling the line of scrimmage and keeping Auburn on the sidelines for this game. You know, as we all know, you know, these guys can be really dangerous at times. They come up with some stuff that we've never seen before through the entire season for this game on offense and on defense. And I'm just curious, how has the offensive line continue to respond to their playing better and better each week, and their focus on this game? Are they locked in for this game?
Right. Well, I do agree that we're making progress in the offensive line, and we've played better and better as a unit, as a group. I think the execution has gotten better, the technique has gotten better, the confidence that they have in communicating and playing together has gotten better. And, you know, I think, you know, the whole entire offensive team has executed better and I think it starts up front with the offensive line, but the quarterback's, you know, transformed, you know, into being a very positive player, run and pass, and leadership on the field, which I think has impacted everybody in a positive way as well. But I will say this, you know, this is a much more challenging front than we played against the last couple of weeks. They got some stout folks inside. And they play a very good system on defense, and they do a really, really good job of executing it. So this will be a real challenge for us up front. So it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line responds. But I do agree with you. If you can control the tempo of the game on offense, especially when you play on the road, and there's circumstances that can impact that. But when you can do that, I think it goes a long way in helping your team be successful.
Coach, we've got a question from, it comes from Walker in Dallas, Texas. He reads the Nick Saban show columns on AL.com. He says, Coach, to my eyes, our tight ends continue to improve each week. Can you comment on how important this group has been to our overall offense? Roll Tide.
Yeah, well, I think I would agree with that statement very much in terms of, you know, we basically have four guys that make a very significant contribution, you know, to that group. And they all have roles that they're capable of, you know, making significant impacts, but they all can do all the things that we need to do at that position. So they all have diversity as well. Like Amari Knobloch is a really good receiver, but he can block, and we can run the ball when he's in the game. And, you know, CJ's a really good blocker, but he's a good receiver too. And, you know, same thing with Robbie Ute. So this group has really, it's hard to run the ball if you can't have someone in the what I call the C area, which is the area outside the tackle, who has some power and can get some movement on people. And these guys have done a really, really good job of that all year, but they made a lot of explosive plays as well.
We're going to come right back. We got a lot more coming from the coach. We've got Gary Harris from WVUA 23 here in Tuscaloosa. So don't you leave us now. We're just getting going on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. McClellan lined up wide of the quarterback to the left side. Milroe gets the snap, fires a bullet. Touchdown, Alabama. Jermaine Burton at the back line of the end zone. And like those bullet passes right there. And that was 6 touchdown receptions for Jermaine Burton. And for Jalen Milroe, he's got himself a host of touchdown passes on the year. 19 of those and 12 more on the ground. I'll tell you, that combination has really matured over the course of the season.
I had no doubt about it. I mean, you look at Jalen Milroe, you mentioned of course, obviously, Eli, you've been calling games since the late 80s, but since I've been here, of all the quarterbacks that I've seen, there have been some good ones that come through here. I don't know that I've seen a guy improve as much during the course of a season.
Yeah.
You know, he came out against Middle Tennessee, remember, and had a big game to start the season.
Sure.
You know, and then I thought made some plays in the Texas game. Everybody looks at the turnovers there, but then after sitting out that South Florida game, it started obviously with Ole Miss, but you see the progression game to game. And, you know, people talk about his running ability, and obviously he's a dynamic athlete, but his ability now to stand in the pocket, go through his progressions, make the throws, and the arm's always been there. When people would tell me Jalen Milroe can't throw the football, I would always argue with him. I'd say he can throw the football. His arm talent is there. Most of I thought, of course, Coach may totally disagree. I thought most of the mistakes that he made were poor decisions more than not the ability to make the throws, because he was making throws in tight windows even, you know, early in the season. But now the way he's playing, the confidence, he seems to know when to use his legs versus when to, you know, stay in the pocket and go through his progressions. It's just been a dynamic transformation that he's made, and now those receivers are all catching the football. It's been fun to watch, and I'll tell you that. And you know, when Alabama fans call my radio show talking about Milroe, I say, can you imagine, get your fandom, and imagine being a fan of another school or opposing defensive coordinator, trying to prepare to face this guy.
Yeah. And Coach, of course,
not easy.
He's getting more time to work too. The offensive line has stepped up as the season has progressed.
Yeah, and I think that the entire group, you know, we've made progress at every position. You know, the running backs have played well all year long,
sure,
but their production has actually increased as we've improved in the offensive line. You know, the protection has gotten better. The only sack we really had last week is we were really outnumbered. We should have thrown the ball hot. You know, Jalen looked right at his hot and just didn't turn it loose because he thought he could make a bigger play doing something else, and then we couldn't block them all. So that really wasn't the line's fault. It's really a schematic thing that you just got to be able to execute. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
So when you're in empty, you only got 5 guys to block. So if they bring 6, you got to get it out. So, but they're all playing blitz coverage too, so you can make some explosive plays sometimes. So, but I think everybody on the offensive team has developed trust in the system, in the things that we're doing, and their ability to execute it. And I think that has helped us tremendously. And, you know, in the last few weeks, we've been a really, really productive offense.
Sure have. Gary, jump on in.
Yeah, Coach, this year, obviously, the Iron Bowl's at Jordan Hare. And Monday at your press conference, I found it interesting. A reporter asked you, I think kind of wanted to take you into the weird things happen there and all that type of stuff. And you just said, you know what, in my experience coaching here at Alabama, the team that's played the best has won the game. Period.
That's right. That's exactly how it's been. And, you know, people talk about this stuff all the time, and I don't see it, you know, because in the games that we haven't been successful in, you know, we made the errors and didn't play well enough, and they played really, really well. And, I mean, even in the, you know, the kick 6 game that everybody talks about, I think we had the ball like inside the 25-yard line 5 times and never scored a point when we were ahead by 7 points in the third and fourth quarter, whether it was missed field goal, blocked field goal, penalty in the end zone after getting the ball to the 7-yard line, whatever it is. So that was ultimately what was the deciding factor in the game. But all those other things that happened before that were misexecutions, basically, and mental errors, led to that circumstance having a chance to have significance. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the whole game as a total and you analyze what you did, we didn't play very well. All right, so the team that plays the best wins the game, and that's what I've been trying to emphasize with our players. And when you get stuff in your head, it's the same thing I said before. People who lose think they're going to lose. People who win think they're going to win. People who think weird stuff happens. All right, and weird stuff doesn't really happen. You got to focus on what happens on the field. And if you focus and can stay focused on that, it's a tough place to play. It's a tough environment. But name the place in the SEC that isn't hard to play. I mean, Tennessee's hard to play. LSU's hard to play. I mean, it's hard to play at Texas A&M. It's hard to play everywhere you go. So you can't let that. I mean, like I said to the players, could you tie your shoes in this noise? Yeah, Coach, I could do that. Well, how come? Because all you're thinking about tying your shoes. Well, just think about playing what you got to do on the field, not about the noise and all this stuff. I mean, it just. But when you start thinking about all that stuff and that gets in your head, then it leads to something real, and it's not really at all that at all. It's how do you execute and play on the field? How do you adjust? How do you execute and do your job? So, and preparation is a really, really big part of that, especially against a team like, P, we mentioned earlier, they do a lot of stuff on offense. They do a lot of stuff on offense, man. They got a lot of formations. They got a lot of adjustments. They got unbalanced lines. They got a lot of quarterback runs. They got 2 quarterbacks that can run. All right, so there's a lot of challenges that go into preparing so that you can play well in the game, and you got to be focused on that all week long.
Coach, we have a visitor right here at Bob Baumhauer's restaurant with a question for you. Hi there, young man. How are you?
Good.
Good. What do you got? What's on your mind?
So, Coach Saban, I admire your success and leadership in football, but as a young basketball player wanting to excel in my sport, what advice would you give me, or what advice would you give to a young athlete like me?
Well, I think for any athlete, it's the same thing. What's your goal? What's your aspiration? What do you want to accomplish and what you want to do? That's the first thing. Second thing is define what it takes to do it. All right, so what do you have to do this? What does it entail for you to be the kind of basketball player that you want to be? All right, then you got to make the decision, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to go work every day and do the things you need to do and take 500 shots a day like Kobe Bryant did or whatever, all right, so that you can be the kind of player that you want to be? And then do you have enough discipline to make yourself do it every day, whether you feel like it or not? How many times do you say, I don't feel like studying? How many times do you say, I don't feel like getting up today? Well, you got to choose to get up. You got to choose to study. You got to choose to go make the shots. You got to choose to work out. So people that can do that, they can reach their full potential. And I think if you choose to make that kind of commitment to it, you can do the same thing. But it's not going to just come to you. It's not going to come easy. And you're going to have to probably overcome a lot of adversity to be able to persevere and sustain it to get where you want to go. But are you willing to do that? Do you have a sense of purpose that will allow you to do that?
We wish you the best, sir. Thank you for being here today. Happy Thanksgiving. Coach, our second question from the Nick Saban Show readers on AL.com comes from Sam in Alexandria, Virginia. It says, hey, Coach, similar to the Tennessee rivalry, do you have to educate our younger out-of-state players on the history of the Iron Bowl, or do they learn it otherwise? We're thankful for you, Coach Saban. Roll Tide.
Well, I don't think you can be around here.
Yeah, and not get it.
And not get it. I mean, you answered the question for me.
Yeah. Happy to be of assistance.
Yeah. So is it come more natural to a guy that grew up in Alabama and knows that everybody seems to pick a side by the time they're 3 years old, and they grow up with that passion, which I think is great. I think it's great for our state. I think it's great for this game, and it makes it the great rivalry game that it is.
Sure.
So, and I think most of the guys that we recruit, understand that this is a big game because it's a national game, and everybody recognizes the significance of the Iron Bowl wherever you go. And then all you have to do is be exposed to this passion that people have on both sides, and it doesn't take long to get it.
Yeah, exactly right. Coach, we've got Joe on the phone in Hartselle, Alabama. Hello, Joe. Welcome in.
I just want to give you a call, Allie. I'll tell you how much we enjoy you. We know how much the Bama Nations pray for you, and I ask them to continue to pray for you because obviously cancer knows no boundaries out here, guys. So let's keep up the prayers for everyone and be thankful for what we got.
Yeah,
Coach, right quick, your grandkids there tonight, I'd like to know what their favorite food Miss Terry's going to serve them tomorrow.
Turkey, dressing. We usually have ham, mashed potatoes, lots of gravy, cream corn.
Yeah.
I'm getting this rundown myself because, but we usually have a really good Thanksgiving, and we usually have a really big Thanksgiving because our family gets joined by, I think I already mentioned this, but like 15 players on the team, and it's good for the players to see, for me to see them not on the field being players or in a meeting being players, and see them in another environment. That's why I always like to have the players over and take them out on the boat, go tubing, whatever. And I think it's good for them to see me and our family, in a more natural setting, and see that we have a dog and we're just like a lot of other people.
It's interesting that you say that, but I guess it's got to be unusual for the players. They don't know, how to address you, how to kick back with you a little bit as opposed to being in a meeting room somewhere.
Oh, they do, believe me.
They figure it out.
They figure it out, and they're on me all the time. I mean, they were on me yesterday because it was a little bit cold, so, I got on one of them because they had, their tights on.
Mm-hmm.
So then they were all betting that I had my tights on. So I had to prove to them I didn't. They know how to get on me. Don't think they don't.
I hear you. We're going to come right back. We got more coming up from the coach, more from our special media guest, Gary Harris from WVUA Television here in Tuscaloosa. So don't leave us. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. In front. Alabama now with Milroe on the give to Roydell. Nothing up the middle. He kicks it to his left. He'll outrace everybody. He is in for the touchdown. It'll be a 10-yard run for Roydell Williams. His third rushing touchdown of the season as he posted a nice ball game last week. 7 carries, 52 yards and the TD. And Alabama went on to defeat Chattanooga 66-10. Welcome back, everybody. Eli Gold, Gary Harris from Channel 23 here in Tuscaloosa, and head coach Nick Saban. Let's go to your question, Gary. What you got on your mind now?
I got a good one. I think Coach is going to appreciate this and give us some good insight. You've always said football is a developmental game. Obviously, it is. You recruited a high level 5, even 10 years ago. Guys came in with the expectation that they might have to be developed and wait and be patient. You've had a lot of examples. I wrote some of them down. Ryan Anderson, Brian Robinson Jr., Mac Jones, Rashawn Evans, Reggie Ragland, J.C. Hassenauer, Blake Sims, guys that waited their turn. Then they got their opportunity, played well, and most of them wound up in the NFL. Now with NIL and with the portal, guys don't always want to be developed. How big a challenge is that once you sign young men that have ability to keep them in the program until their time does come?
Yeah, well, I think that they want to be developed. I think that every player wants to be developed. I don't think players have the same patience in their developmental process as they once did. I think it was more the culture that, like, even back when I played, freshmen weren't even eligible, so it wasn't even a thought that you would play. And I heard Woody Hayes say one time when I was at Ohio State, for every sophomore that we have starting, we're going to lose one game. Sophomore, that means they were there in their second year. So the whole culture has changed. Now I think, players are more developed and more ready to play now than they used to be because of the kind of programs they come out of and how they develop at an early age, and people specialize earlier. I mean, back in the day, everybody played football in football season, basketball in basketball season, ran track or played baseball in baseball season, and they just played and competed, and if they were good and they liked the sport, maybe they got an opportunity to specialize when they went to college. Now, guys make that decision when they're in 7th and 8th grade, and they're working out and they're trying to develop. So you get, in lots of cases, a guy that's more mature and more ready to play physically than what they were in the old days. I think everybody wants to get developed. I just think that we've created a system that you don't have to be patient. Not long ago, 5 years ago even, a guy had to develop in the program. So he had to work hard, he had to compete, he had to try to beat somebody out. And that's probably a good thing to help you be successful in life. Perseverance is probably somewhere up there pretty high in what it takes to be successful. So that was a good thing in that way. Now with more freedom to be able to say, well, I might not play next year, so I can go over here and play next year. I can go over here and maybe get a better deal or whatever. The emphasis is not so much on developing at one place, but I don't need to have patience to be able to develop, because I can go someplace else and develop and maybe play more quickly, which a lot of people and a lot of outside noise is saying playing will help your development. In my opinion, you only create value for yourself if you play well when you play. That's what I try to tell players. So even freshmen that we're recruiting, they'll say, well, I'd like to come play as a freshman. I say, well, I want you to focus on development. We'll give you every opportunity to play, but you're not really going to create any value for yourself, nor are you going to develop any confidence in yourself if you go out there and play before you're ready to play, which means you know what to do, you know how to do it, you know why it's important to do it that way, and you got confidence in doing it, so you're going to go play well, and you're going to create value for yourself. If you don't know those things, it can go the other way on you, because you're not doing what you're supposed to do and you're not creating value for yourself. So somewhere in the middle probably is the right place to be, where people have to make commitments and they have to see them through. I think that's probably a good thing to a point. But I also think that, when guys are in a situation where they could play and they're not playing and they can go someplace else and play, and that can be beneficial to them, I think it's a good thing that they have the opportunity to do that. So somewhere in between would probably be perfect.
Speaking of the portal season is just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about with NIL and with the portal, and I guess they're trying to work on something, but getting a better system in place than what we have. Can that happen? Is there anybody to put that system in place to maybe tweak it a little bit, so in a couple of weeks guys are going to be leaving their current teams and jumping in the portal in a lot of cases and not even going to finish out the season with their current teams?
Yeah, well, none of that's probably a good thing, but it is what it is, and you have to manage it and, do the best you can. I think we had like 10 guys that didn't play in a bowl game last year, but the guys that decided to play pretty well. So that's what you got to stay focused on as a coach. So, look, my big thing is every competitive venue that you could name for me has some rules and regulations that regulate competitive balance. Whether you have a salary cap in the NFL, whether you have rules relative to if you have a losing record, you get to draft faster, you get to play an easier schedule next year. If you have a really good team, you draft later, you play a harder schedule next year. All those things are for competitive balance. That's why you have salary caps. That's why you have all these rules. Even though you have free agencies and guys can leave and do all that, they have contracts. We have no contracts in college, and we have no competitive balance. There is no salary cap. All right, everybody is, whoever wants to raise the most money and pay the player the most, they have the best opportunity to have the best team. So you've gone from a transition of what you call development of people who are supposed to be going to college, in my opinion, to develop value for their future, to a culture of where can I make the most money while I'm going to college. So everybody can have their opinion on whether that's good or bad, but my issue is some kind of way the players should be able to benefit, but they should be able to benefit equally at whatever Division I school they go to. In other words, just because School A over here has a bigger collective and is willing to pay guys more money, that gives them a better opportunity than school over here that doesn't have those same resources. So you're not creating a competitive balance. So the haves are going to get further over here and the have-nots are going to get further over here. But if you look at the NFL, if you ask what would be the perfect season for the NFL, it would be for everybody to be 8-8 when they go into the last game. And nobody knows who's getting in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All 32 teams got a chance to get in the playoffs. More fans, more TV, more everything is better. Everything is better if we have competitive balance. If we don't have competitive balance, then you don't have as many good games. You start to lose interest. People want to come and see the Tennessee game, the LSU game. People want to come and see this game this weekend when we play Auburn. That's good. That's a good thing for college football. And we should have the same balance with all those teams in terms of how can you put your roster together and what restrictions and rules do you have and guidelines do you have so that everybody's got the same thing. I'm not saying we shouldn't be paying players. I'm great with that. I like the quality of life that we've been able to create it, but it's got to be done with some kind of parameter that controls competitive balance.
I hear you. Let's go to the phones, gentlemen. Corey is in Trustville. Hello, Corey. Welcome in.
Hey, Eli and Coach Saban, how are y'all doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you?
You know, something I've noticed about the Iron Bowl over the years is that you and your team have done a really good job of not getting it real chippy, unlike other rivalries. What have you been able to tell your players over the years that makes it where, even though the rivalry, you respect the rivalry, it's not getting too high and emotional and just letting the game come to you and not letting it get out of control?
Well, that's one of the things that we really try to teach players is that when you get emotional, you make poor choices and decisions. And every opportunity we have to teach players that by their actions, we use that as an opportunity and a learning experience for them. You want players to have an emotional edge to be able to compete, all right? But when you get emotional, you make bad choices and decisions and you really don't have a brain, all right? So it's always my contention that half the people that are incarcerated probably wouldn't have made the decision that got them put there if it wasn't for some emotional decision. Normally, they wouldn't do what they did, all right? But they get emotional and then they make a bad choice and decision, and now all of a sudden they got themselves in trouble and you can't take it back. Same thing with the guy that gets pushed and then he hits a guy back and he gets a 15-yard penalty. Well, you never can get that back, but that was an emotional reaction, right, not something a guy typically would do. So one of the things that we really try to do with our players, and we have a few that violate this, and it upsets me to no end, is you don't talk to the other team. You don't talk to the other players in practice. You don't dog the other players in practice because, you know, that kind of creates an emotional sort of situation between you and that player, which can lead to emotional outbreak, emotional decisions. Somebody does something stupid, knocks somebody down into somebody else's leg, and you get a guy hurt or whatever. All right, so you want to play with emotion, but be under control in terms of your level of intensity and your ability to make good choices and decisions while you're playing and competing. So those are some of the things that we try to do to minimize that. But it still happens. And the more arrogant you are, probably the more it happens. I hate to say that. I hate to say that about any player. I hate to say that about any player on our team. But the more arrogant you are, the more you think you're being disrespected when somebody says something to you and you react poorly to it and bad things happen. So
We're coming right back. More from the coach and from Gary Harris right after this on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Snap to the punter is low, but he digs it out neatly. And it's booted away. Downs has it, spins loose, gets free, cuts to the right, and he is on his high horse, running all the way. Touchdown, Alabama, 85 yards. Caleb down to an 85-yard touchdown on the return of the punt as Alabama goes on to post the big win over Chattanooga. Coach, normally we go to the top of the hour, but I understand that your schedule is tight and you've got to hit the doors here in just a moment or so. So I do want to give you a chance to make your final word for the evening. Presented by Mercedes-Benz, the vehicles are all electric. The feeling is all Mercedes.
Right. Well, I think the big thing that we're trying to do with our team, and I think everyone's support is certainly appreciated in this. It's been great this year. Y'all have had great patience with this team, and this team's transformation has been pretty astonishing to get to this point and create this opportunity. But to pay attention to what you have to do to continue upward improvement, to be a dangerous team. Your opponent really doesn't affect that. You affect it by what you control and what you do, what you think, and what I said before, what do you choose to pay attention to? And I think that's what our entire fan base needs to do. I know this is a difficult place to play, but, I also know that when we get there on the bus and there's a bunch of fans there when we're getting off the bus, there's a calming effect that goes with that when you're playing on the road. You know that you got some people there, you got some family there, you got some people that care about you, and that's really important. And it's going to be important for us in this game. Everybody's been fantastic all season long, and we just want to keep this team, sort of developing and continuing to grow and develop momentum and peak at the right time. And this is going to be a really challenging game for us, and we're excited about having the opportunity, and I'm excited for this team getting themselves in a position to have an opportunity to do this. So we're looking forward to a great game, and we're looking forward to all your support and help, and we're just going to go for it, man. We got to go for it, and we still got work to do. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. We appreciate it. We appreciate you, and I hope your family has a great holiday.
Coach, the same to you guys as well. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
That's Coach Nick Saban and Gary Harris, who is staying with us now until the top of the hour. You're getting overtime here, Gary.
Yeah, man, I'm getting to be with you, Eli. And great to get up here with Coach.
Yeah, you always learn a lot. At least I do, and I love listening to what he has to share. This segment of the Nick Saban Show is brought to you by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With zero sugar and refreshingly delicious, is Coca-Cola Zero Sugar the best Coke ever? Well, find out for yourself. I think you'll agree it is. What does your schedule look like this week versus any other week? Do you produce additional packages? Do you do more than you would have for the game against Chattanooga, or is every game equally as important?
No, it's we're going to send a crew down Friday.
Okay.
And so we'll be live down there Friday night, and that's a little bit different. We don't go live as much from other away venues,
right.
But we will for this one. And then so we live Friday at 5 and at 10 and have coverage from that. So, yeah, I'd say there's more into this. And then, in fact, yesterday, Eli, my entire show was all Iron Bowl.
Right.
And now today I had some holiday basketball tournaments and mixed it up a little bit. But Monday and Tuesday was pretty much all Iron Bowl. Today I mixed it up. Tomorrow I'm off, thankfully, for Thanksgiving. And then Friday, Friday it'll be all Iron Bowl. I mean, I might, if there's a big breaking sports story or something, we might mix something in. But for the most part, people are tuning in Friday. If you're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the local sportscaster, you want to see Iron Bowl coverage.
Exactly. So, there's no question about it. We mentioned that you've been at VUA and its other incarnations for many, many years. How has the business changed over the course of the years, with now everybody having cable, which wasn't the case necessarily when all this began? How has the business changed?
Well, I think the biggest thing from a broadcast standpoint, Eli, and you being a play-by-play guy probably are not as affected by it as I am as a local sportscaster, is the internet.
Yeah.
You know, and I know you remember this too from your local TV days when we were growing up. I mean, local TV, local radio, that was it, man.
Yeah.
And you turned in to your local sportscaster to get the sports news. You didn't know what had already happened.
Exactly.
The biggest thing with the internet was right away you had to realize, listen, people already know what's happened. You've got to be able to give them some analysis. You've got to be able to give them some features. You just can't come on and give scores anymore because people already know the scores. And so and then it's just, you know, it's kind of evolved to the point where there's so many people that have access now to be able to do what we do. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying we came up through, you know, learning how to do it through local TV, local radio, whatever it is. And now because of the internet, there are a lot of people that they have an outlet, and if they're able to get a following, you know, they can take viewers and listeners away from you. So that's been the biggest change, is understanding that there's a lot of different ways to get information, not just on your local television, your local newspaper, your local radio station anymore.
Are you then a sportscaster still to this day, or are you a content provider for your station's website?
Both. You know, and I've been, to be honest with you, and my boss Steve DiOrio's here tonight. He'll know I've been slow to the internet, but I've really picked it up in the last couple of years and learning social media. It's both. You know, I still consider myself a sportscaster first, a TV and radio sportscaster. And I still want to believe that people want to watch television and listen to the radio, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that if there's, you know, whether it's a local high school coach resigning or being fired or whatever it is, that you can't sit on it and wait until your sports show. If you get it first, you've got to get it out on the internet or somebody will beat you to it. So I do both now. I'm constantly on my phone with social media updates and website updates, so it's both.
We're visiting with Gary Harris, sports director from Channel 23 here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Coach, on the Nick Saban Show, presented by, Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. When you talk about the audience that you have a unique situation in that you're here in Tuscaloosa, and every person at the university has access to seeing you immediately on your nightly newscast and nightly sportscast. Are you cognizant of that? Are you always thinking, well, I wonder what the coach would say if he heard this? Or do you not think about that?
You know, I don't think about it that often. And I'll say this, even though the station is owned by the University of Alabama, we are a commercial station, and I have not ever had an issue with anybody trying to tell me, hey, you can't say this, or you can't say that, or you shouldn't have said this. So I don't even think about it. Now listen, you know my style. You and I have talked about this. You know, I'm an old school sportscaster. You know, the thought of just getting on there just to stir somebody up, it's not the way I do it. I'm never going to do it that way. I want to give the sports, try to make it interesting and entertaining. So it probably hasn't been an issue because I simply, even in this era of shock and, you know, you got to be first and you got to, you know, get a reaction, I still do my sportscast very similar to the way I did it 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. So I still think there's a place for that. I think people want information. I think they want, I'm not going to say I'm not completely unbiased, but you know what I'm saying. I present it a lot of the ways that when you were on TV that you did it, and I still do it that way.
Yeah, we're visiting with Gary Harris, sports director at Channel 23 here in Tuscaloosa. Coach Saban was with us, of course, had to leave a few minutes early, but we've got Gary and I sitting here reminiscing and talking and whatever we can do as a couple old guys sitting around here sharing some. What's the biggest story that you have covered?
My gosh. Well, even though I was 18 years old when I started in the TV business and I didn't know what I was doing, I guess right off the bat, you know, I was working at Channel 40 in Anniston when Coach Bryant
passed away,
retired, and then passed away. Yeah. So that was right off the bat. But and here in Tuscaloosa, obviously when Coach Saban came, but one that was really unique was, and this is a little trivia. I called the only game. Tyler Watts and I. Tyler's first broadcaster. Your partner now.
Sure.
We did the only game that Coach Mike Price ever coached at Alabama. That was the 8-day game.
The 8-day game.
Yeah. We did it for television, and but when that happened with him. And that day when it was one of those surreal things, you know, what had happened had gotten out. You knew that he probably wasn't going to remain the coach at the University of Alabama, yet we had, in essence, what was kind of like a hearing, you know, and he got to get up and make his case. And it was the weirdest thing, seeing him there and his family there. He never even got to the season, and being there that entire day over at the Bryant Conference Center and covering that was, from a sports standpoint, it was unique. I've never quite been through anything like that before or since.
I bet not. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your car's home, life, and business with Alpha. You can get a quote or find a local agent at alphainsurance.com. What's your Thanksgiving Day ritual tomorrow, sir?
Well, since I'm off, and I know my mom's listening, I want to. She just got out of the hospital today. She's been in the hospital for several days, and my sister and I didn't know if we were going to be able to. She was going to be able to get out in time for Thanksgiving. Thankfully, she did. So I'm headed over. Well, my sister lives in Birmingham. My mom lives over in Northeast Alabama. So we're going to be gathering and spending some time with her and looking forward to that because. Again, wasn't quite sure she would get out in time and have, I would have gone to the hospital otherwise, but we're happy that she's home, so really looking forward to it. So it's going to be a family day for me.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, listen, I thank you so much for joining us. It's been a while since we've had a chance to sit down and shoot the breeze like this, and I wish you all the best, and thanks for being part of the show.
Good to see you, Eli. Thank you.
You too, Gary.
Thank you, Tom.
Take care. That's Gary Harris, Sports Director of Channel 23 here in Tuscaloosa, here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.